They threw me out on Thanksgiving night. We've all talked about it, and you need to leave. Tonight. And don't bother coming back, my brother Tyler said. His voice cold and rehearsed. I just looked at him and smiled. All right then, I said calmly. I guess you won't need this anymore. And with that, I ripped the envelope in half and walked toward the door. When they realized what I'd just destroyed, the screaming started. But I was already gone. Let me back up. Technically, I didn't even finish my turkey. There was still cranberry sauce on my plate, and I'm certain Tyler's girlfriend, Madison, who basically lives with us now and treats our dining room like her personal Instagram studio, was in the middle of her third helping when everything went down. My fork was literally halfway to my mouth when it happened. Tyler had just finished some ridiculous story about how he saved Thanksgiving by ordering a backup turkey online, even though I was the one who brined it at 5 a.m., seasoned it, and monitored the oven for 6 straight hours. Classic Tyler, taking credit for my work. Then he dropped the bomb, like he'd been rehearsing it in the mirror all week. We've all talked, he said, setting down his wine glass like he was in some reality TV confessional. And we think it's time you found your own place. Permanently. Just like that. One sentence, no warning. No discussion, I blinked. Stared at him. Looked around the table. Excuse me? I said. Tyler repeated it. Slower this time. Like I was hard of hearing. It's time for you to move out. For good. Nobody corrected him. Nobody said, wait, hold on, that's not what we meant. Because they'd all discussed it. Behind my back. My own family, without me. Apparently family meetings don't include everyone anymore. I looked at each of them, my mom, picking at her napkin nervously. My dad, suddenly very focused on cutting his turkey into perfect squares. Tyler, sitting there smug as hell in his overpriced Patagonia vest that he wears indoors like he's about to go hiking through the suburbs. And Madison. Sweet, clueless Madison, who looked like she wanted to sink into the floor, but was too busy documenting everything for her TikTok followers to actually leave. Something inside me snapped, but instead of crying or yelling, I reached into my jacket pocket. I'd brought it downstairs just before dinner. Almost left it in my room, actually. The envelope had been sitting on my desk for 2 weeks. I'd planned to give it to them after dessert. I'd even rehearsed a little speech. Something genuine. Something that would show them I wasn't the villain they'd made me out to be. But now? Now they'd just told me to pack my bags and get lost. On Thanksgiving, I pulled out the envelope. Thick, cream-colored paper, sealed with a gold wax seal because apparently I still had hope that this moment would mean something. I held it up. Okay then, I said, my smile so wide it hurt. I guess you won't be needing this. And I tore it, right down the middle. Clean, deliberate. There was this moment, this split second, where nobody moved, just the sound of paper ripping. That soft, almost delicate sound that feels way too quiet for what it actually means. Then I dropped both halves onto the table, right on top of Madison's perfect plate. I stood up, grabbed my jacket off the chair, and headed for the stairs. It took maybe 5 seconds before Tyler shouted, "Wait, what the hell was that?" But I didn't answer. I was already upstairs, walking past the hallway photo wall where I'm mysteriously absent from half the pictures, past the framed family portrait where somehow my face came out blurry even though I was standing completely still. I started grabbing things, backpack, laptop, chargers, toothbrush, a few pairs of jeans. I didn't fold anything, just shoved it all into my duffel bag. Downstairs, the voices got louder. Tyler was yelling something about overreacting. Mom kept saying something about timing and why now. Dad finally spoke up, I think. Hard to tell. They all sound the same when they're panicking over a mistake they can't undo. I zipped the bag, threw it over my shoulder, and took one last look at my room. The same twin bed I'd slept in since middle school. The dent in the wall from when I tripped over my laundry basket in 9th grade. The bookshelf with my 8th grade debate trophy still sitting there, dusty and forgotten, because nobody mentioned it again after Tyler won state the following year. I didn't say goodbye. I walked down the stairs slowly, taking in the chaos. When I passed the dining room, I didn't stop, didn't look at their faces, didn't gloat. I just opened the front door, stepped into the cold November night, and shut it behind me. They didn't follow me. Not right away, but they would. Eventually, they'd put the pieces together, they'd remember what today was supposed to be. They'd realize what I'd been planning to do, what they'd just thrown away. That envelope wasn't just a letter, it was their future. And they'd just destroyed it. It's a weird feeling, packing your life into a duffel bag in the house you grew up in, like you're some kind of stranger. Even weirder when you realize nobody tried to stop you. Nobody asked where you were going. They just let you go. It wasn't always this bad. Okay, maybe it was. But I didn't really notice until I got older and realized that not everyone's childhood feels like living in someone else's highlight reel. Tyler was the golden child from day one, literally, from birth. I've seen the baby photos. He's got this angelic little face, all smiles and dimples, while I'm in the background looking like a confused potato. Everyone loved him. Teachers, neighbors, random people at the grocery store. He had that thing, that effortless charm that made adults want to hand him stuff. He got trophies for participation, awards for leadership potential, scholarships for being well-rounded. Meanwhile, I once got a certificate that said honorable mention for a group science project. And I had to share it with 3 other kids. Our mom treated Tyler like he was her masterpiece, like she'd been practicing on me and finally got it right the second time around. They'd go to basketball games together, sit in the den and talk about life stuff while I cleaned up after dinner. I once heard her tell him, "You're going to do amazing things." I just know it. I was 14, standing right there, washing dishes. She never said anything like that to me. Dad mostly stayed out of it. I think he figured that as long as nobody was crying and the bills got paid, everything was fine. Being neutral was easier than being involved. And then there was Aunt Vivian. She wasn't technically our aunt, not by blood. She was Mom's godmother, but we called her Aunt Vivian because it was easier than explaining the family tree every time. She was old money. Like real old money. The kind where you don't talk about it, but everyone knows. Big house in Connecticut. No kids. Drove a vintage Mercedes. Wore cashmere like it was basic cotton. She lived alone after her husband passed, and she never remarried. No children of her own. Just us. Or, more accurately, just Tyler. Tyler started visiting her when he was in high school. Weekend trips. Holiday brunches. He'd come home with gifts, watches, books, once even a laptop, just because. Mom encouraged it. Called it spending quality time with family. Said Tyler was doing a kind thing by keeping a lonely woman company. I went sometimes too. Not often. Nobody really expected me to. When I did go, we'd sit in her sunroom, talk about books, drink iced tea, and complain about how the deer kept eating her garden. She was kind. A little formal, but genuinely kind. She never made me feel like I had to perform or be someone I wasn't. When I turned 18, she gave me a leather journal and said, "Every person should have a place to put their thoughts where no one else can touch them." I still have it. Never wrote in it. But I kept it. Anyway, you can probably guess where this is going. Aunt Vivian passed away 4 months ago. Peacefully. In her sleep. At 87, Tyler was the one who got the call. I found out through a family group text that just said, "Aunt Vivian passed last night." Funeral details TBA, no one seemed devastated. Not really. They were composed, respectful, the way people are when they're sad about an inconvenience. Not a loss, because everyone knew what came next. The will. They held the reading at Aunt Vivian's attorney's office in Hartford. A sleek little firm with glass walls, leather chairs, and a receptionist who offered us bottled water like we were at a spa. Tyler showed up in a full suit. Mom wore pearls. Dad wore the same tie he wore to my high school graduation. Madison was there too, which felt bold, considering she's not legally related to anyone except maybe Tyler's Netflix account. I wore jeans and a sweater. We sat in a conference room while a paralegal handed out folders, and the attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Callahan, opened a leather binder and cleared her throat. Then she started reading. The will. To my great-nephew Tyler Bennett, I leave my collection of first edition novels and my gratitude for the time we shared. Tyler smiled, nodded, like he'd just won something. To my goddaughter Helen Bennett and her husband Richard, I leave the painting above the mantel and my best wishes for their retirement. Mom's face softened. She squeezed Dad's hand. Then Ms. Callahan turned the page. And to my great-niece Rebecca Bennett, I leave the entirety of my estate. This includes the house, all financial accounts, investment portfolios, vehicles, jewelry, and any remaining personal property not otherwise specified. Silence. Complete. Total. Silence. Tyler's smile froze mid-expression. Mom's hand went limp in Dad's. Madison whispered, "Wait, her?" Ms. Callahan didn't flinch. Just kept reading. Instructions for the estate, donations to the local library, notes about the funeral arrangements, but none of it mattered. Not after that. When we walked out into the parking lot, nobody spoke. I was in shock. Genuine shock. I kept thinking it was a mistake, a typo, some kind of test. Tyler broke the silence. He didn't look at me when he said it. "What did you do?" I stared at him. "What? What did you do to convince her?" "I didn't do anything." "Bullshit." Mom stepped in. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Rebecca, you need to tell us the truth. Did you manipulate her? Did you say something to turn her against us?" I couldn't even process what she was asking. "I didn't. Mom, I barely saw her." "You know that? Then why would she leave everything to you?" I didn't have an answer, because I didn't know. After that day, everything changed. They stopped talking to me, not openly. Not dramatically, just quietly. I'd walk into the kitchen, and the conversation would stop. I'd sit down at dinner, and suddenly everyone was very interested in their phones. I'd try to contribute, and I'd get one-word answers. It was like I'd become invisible. Or worse, like I was a ghost haunting the house, reminding them of something they'd lost. Tyler started making comments. Little digs. "Must be nice, huh? Having everything handed to you. Guess some people just get lucky." Mom stopped asking how my day was. Dad stopped making eye contact. Madison started posting passive-aggressive quotes on Instagram. Stuff like, "Blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and some people forget where they came from." I felt like a criminal, like I'd stolen something that wasn't mine, even though I didn't ask for it. Didn't scheme for it. Didn't even want it, not like this, so I decided to fix it. I started writing the letter, the one I planned to give them on Thanksgiving, the one I sealed, with gold wax, the one I tore in half. I didn't write that letter because I'm some selfless saint. Let me be clear about that. I didn't do it to buy their love or make peace or be some kind of martyr. Did it because I was tired. Tired of being looked at like I was the villain in a story I didn't write. Tired of feeling guilty for something I didn't do. And maybe, just maybe, I still believed there was a version of us that could be saved. That if I showed them I wasn't greedy, wasn't selfish, wasn't playing some long game, they'd see me differently, that maybe they'd finally see me. So I sat at my desk for 3 nights straight and wrote that letter. I did the math, ran the numbers, figured out a breakdown that felt fair. I kept a portion for myself. Aunt Vivian had chosen me after all. That had to mean something, but the rest? I divided it up, a lump sum for my parents. Enough to pay off their mortgage and finally take that trip to Italy they'd been talking about for a decade. A generous amount for Tyler. Enough to make him feel like a winner, without funding another 5. Years of finding himself, and even a bit for Madison. Because apparently I'm either incredibly kind or incredibly stupid, and I still haven't figured out which. It wasn't just a letter, it was a peace offering, a way out, for all of us. I sealed it in that cream envelope. added the gold wax seal like some kind of idiot who still believed in gestures, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. The plan was simple. Give it to them after dessert. No big speech. No drama, just a quiet, "Here, I want you to have this," and let them read it on their own. But the week before Thanksgiving, things shifted. It started subtle. Tyler began asking questions. Weirdly specific questions. So, like, how liquid are the accounts? Did the attorney say anything about tax implications? Have you talked to a financial advisor yet? He asked like someone asking about your new haircut when they're really just checking if they still look better than you. Then it got bolder. Mom cornered me in the laundry room one afternoon and said, "You know, Vivian wouldn't have wanted this money to cause problems in the family." I nodded. "That's why I'm being careful about it." She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. I just hope you'll do the right thing." The right thing, like there was only one right answer, and it was giving them what they wanted. Later that night, I overheard Dad on the phone. "Yeah, Rebecca got everything. But we'll talk some sense into her. It's family. She won't actually keep it all, like it was a given. Like me keeping what was legally mine would be an act of betrayal." By the week of Thanksgiving, Tyler was openly leaving real estate listings on the kitchen counter. Houses in Boulder, condos in Austin, Madison started posting mood boards on Instagram. Aesthetic shots of marble countertops and designer furniture with captions like, "Manifesting my dream kitchen." They were planning their lives around my money, around inheritance that wasn't theirs. And I was still holding onto that letter, thinking, maybe if I give them this, they'll stop looking at me like I stole something. Thanksgiving started tense. The table was set for 6. Mom insisted on doing the centerpiece, some Pinterest-inspired thing with mini pumpkins and eucalyptus that smelled like a Trader Joe's exploded. I cooked most of the meal because nobody else volunteered, and I physically can't watch someone ruin mashed potatoes without intervening. Nobody thanked me. Mom did say the stuffing was a little dry. Dinner began in painful silence. Nobody looked at me until they did. Halfway through the meal, Tyler set down his fork and turned to me with a smile that felt like a trap. "So," he said casually, "have you thought about what you're going to do with it?" "The money?" I blinked. "I'm still figuring it out," he laughed. But it wasn't a real laugh. "Well, just remember who was actually there for her, you know? Who spent time with her? Who actually cared?" I said nothing. Mom jumped in. "It's not about us wanting anything, sweetie. But it would be hurtful if you didn't consider everything we've done for you." I was about to respond, calmly, gently, when Tyler went for the throat. "Honestly," he said, swirling his wine like he was on a talk show, "I don't even get how Aunt Vivian ended up leaving you everything. You barely knew her." There it was, the thing they'd all been thinking but hadn't said out loud yet. "You think I manipulated her?" I said slowly. Nobody answered. I reached into my jacket pocket. Felt the edge of the envelope. I'd written that letter. I'd planned this moment. I'd come into this dinner still hoping for peace, and they were ready to tear me apart over something I didn't ask for. That's when Tyler said it. "We've all talked. And we think it's time you move out. For good. Just like that. Like I was a roommate they'd voted out." Nobody corrected him. Nobody defended me. I pulled out the envelope, held it up. They all leaned forward, like dogs waiting for a treat. I smiled. "Okay then," I said. "I guess you won't be needing this," and I tore. It clean, quiet, deliberate. Watched Tyler's face collapse in real time. Dropped the pieces on the table, stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked toward the stairs. They were still sitting there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened when I reached my room and started packing. Let them scream. Let them wonder. They didn't know what they'd just lost, but they would. The cold hit my face the second I stepped outside, but it felt cleaner than anything that had just happened in that house. I was halfway down the driveway when I heard the door slam open behind me. "Rebecca!" Tyler's voice, sharp, urgent, like I'd just stolen his wallet. I didn't stop. "Rebecca, Are you seriously doing this right now? You're actually leaving? I reached the sidewalk before he caught up. He was in socks. No jacket, arms crossed like he was the victim here. You don't have to do this, he said, trying to sound reasonable now. We were just surprised. That's all? I turned to face him. Slowly. Surprised that I exist? Or surprised I didn't just hand everything over with a smile? His face flickered. You didn't even earn it. There it was. You barely knew her, he added. We were the ones who visited. Who spent time with her? Who waited around for her to die so you could get paid? I said flatly. The porch light flicked on. Mom appeared in the doorway, coat thrown over her shoulders. Sweetheart, she called out, her voice shaking. We didn't mean what we said. Tyler was just upset. Speaking for all of you, I said, loud enough for her to hear. She made her way down the steps. Look, emotions were running high. But don't throw away your future over a misunderstanding. I stared at her. My future? She didn't blink. You don't know how hard the world is out there. You'll need us. Families fight, but we come back together. I almost laughed. You told me to pack my things and never come back. That was before we knew. She stopped herself. Before you knew what? I said. That I'd already decided to be generous. That you just burned the only bridge that could have carried you? I turned and started walking again. Rebecca! Tyler shouted. You're really just gonna walk away? Like you don't owe us even a conversation? I looked back one last time. You made it very clear I don't owe you anything. And I kept walking. I didn't stop until I reached the corner. They didn't follow. Not that night. 2 days later, they turned to the extended family, the cousins, the uncles, the aunt I hadn't seen since I was 12, but who suddenly had a lot to say about family values and respect. The texts started rolling in. Some were vague. Hey, heard there was some confusion at Thanksgiving. Hope you're okay. Some were not. You should be ashamed. Your parents gave you everything, and this is how you repay them? One message from a second cousin I barely knew even quoted scripture. She spelled my name wrong. I ignored all of it. My best friend Jenna let me crash at her place in Portland. I offered to pay rent. She refused. You're not here forever, she said. Just until you remember who you are. I thought I already had. Then 3 days after Thanksgiving, there was a knock at the door. Just after sunset. Jenna was at work. I was alone. I opened it and nearly laughed. Mom standing there like she hadn't kicked me out of the house less than a week ago. Hi, she said softly. I didn't move. You're not supposed to know where I am. Your cousin Natalie told me, she said, like that explained everything. You shouldn't have cut us off like this. It's not right. I stared at her. You came all this way to say that? She glanced past me into Jenna's living room. We just want to understand. What happened? What you were thinking. You read the letter, I said. You know what I was thinking. But why did you write it? Her voice pitched upward. Why would you offer us something so generous and then take it away? Because you told me to leave. We were upset. You meant it. She exhaled sharply. Tyler is devastated. Tyler is embarrassed, I corrected. That's not the same thing. I started to close the door. I don't want us to end like this, she said quickly. I paused. This isn't an ending, I said. This is you getting exactly what you wanted. She didn't move. I reached into my jacket pocket. I got something, I said. A letter, she squinted. From who? From Aunt Vivian, I said. Her neighbor sent it. That shut her up. I pulled it out. Carefully folded. Worn at the edges. I didn't hand it to her. I read it out loud. Dear Rebecca, by the time you read this, I imagine a few people are upset. That's all right. When people don't get what they expected, they often forget what they already had. I didn't leave this inheritance to you because you tried to impress me. Quite the opposite. You were the only one who never did. You showed up as yourself. No performance. No careful smiles. You treated me like a real person, not a checkbook with a heartbeat. That kind of honesty is rare. And it stayed with me. This inheritance isn't a reward. It's a vote of confidence. I want you to build something that's truly yours. Something you don't have to apologize for or shrink to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You don't owe anyone a piece of it. You never did. Use it boldly. Use it freely. Use it joyfully. And if people don't understand, let them wonder. With love and faith in your future, Vivian. I looked up. Mom was pale. She knew exactly who you were, I said quietly. Even when you all thought she didn't. Her mouth opened. Closed. I gave her a small smile. Not warm. Not cruel, just done. Tell Tyler I'm not coming back. Then I closed the door, and this time, I didn't look through the peephole to see if she was still standing there. 3 weeks later, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Southeast Portland. Creaky floors. Windows that stuck. A kitchen the size of a closet. But it was mine. No one else's name on the lease. No voices yelling down the hall. No footsteps outside my door that made me brace for impact. I didn't go big. Not yet, I could have. The inheritance was more than enough to buy something flashy, somewhere expensive. But I wanted to take my time, to start small, honest, real. I bought a decent mattress. The kind you pick out for comfort, not because it was on clearance. Jenna came over and helped me hang curtains and a corkboard over my desk. I pinned one thing to it, Aunt Vivian's letter. Sometimes I reread it. Not because I need the reminder, but because it reminds me that I didn't imagine all of this. I really was seen. And chosen, and that's enough. They stopped calling after a while. I heard through the family grapevine that Tyler's startup idea fell through. Madison moved out. My parents are keeping to themselves these days. Apparently, no one wants to visit the house anymore. Something about the energy feeling off. I don't miss them. Not anymore. I miss who I hoped they were. But I know better now, and knowing better is the closest thing I've ever had to peace. Sometimes I still wonder if I went too far. Not the leaving. Not even the silence afterward, but the letter. Was it naive of me to write it in the first place? To believe that handing them money would make them see me differently? Or maybe it wasn't naive. Maybe it was just the last thread of hope, unraveling on paper. Either way, I tore it up. And honestly, I haven't regretted that part once. But still, what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Or was I just as naive as they said? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story.